Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of the Object-Oriented Programming series. In this lesson, now that you've set up the JDK and can successfully compile Java programs on your computer, we're going to create one. First things first, we're going to use Notepad to create our first program. Instead of using Eclipse, I'm going to show you the simplicity of writing your first Java program. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll make a new text document. We don't have to give it a name. And we will write out our first Java program. Now I'm not going to go into extreme detail explaining the program. I'm just going to have you copy me the best you can to get a feel for coding in Java. So the name of our program goes like this: public class, and we're going to call it Hello World. And we use these brackets to enclose everything together into blocks, the curly brackets. The next part of the program is the main method. So public static void main. This is the code that is run when the program is run. It's kind of the code that kicks everything off. And now this, like the parentheses right here, are the parameters. So within these parentheses, we have to include something. We have to include a string array, which is these regular brackets right here. It's an array is essentially a collection of items. So this main method, you can pass it commands, kind of like launch commands or arguments, which is represented by the name of the variable args. I'm not going to go into huge detail. I'll definitely explain everything once we get to Eclipse. Just follow along the best you can. For this program, instead of just doing the boring print out hello world once, we're going to print out hello world until the program is closed out. So what we'll do is we'll do system.out.println. What this will do is it'll get the system, it'll get the output, which will be the console you're running the program in, and it'll print a line to the console. And within the parameters for this method, we're going to give it a string, which is a series of text within double quotes. We're going to basically just type hello world. And this colon right here, this represents the end of a command in the line of code. Like it represents the end of the statement. So essentially, this is going to be the boring old, here's the class, the main method, it runs hello world, prints it out one time on the console, and ends the program. Now to spice things up, it's going to give you an idea of where it gets fun, we can throw a while loop in there. So we can say while, and we need to make sure we put this method inside our encapsulating brackets so it knows that the code is inside here. And for the parameter of the while loop, we'll put true. And true is forever. So true is true. So it's going to run this code forever until we stop the program. I'm definitely going to go into detail explaining every element of this. And before we get into deep programming, I'm going to explain how all of this works. Just make sure you have this written down exactly as it is. And we'll go to File. We'll go to Save As. We will set our type to all files, so we don't add .text to the end of this file. And we're going to call this hello world.java for Java source. Now that we have our source code, we can X out of this. We can toss this new text document. We don't need it. We have our hello world.java right here. Now this is a Java source file. It has the Notepad icon for me because I use Notepad to quickly look at my source code. But you can always just open it with any text editor. Just tell the text editor to open it. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to compile this program now because we want to run this program. So we need to go ahead and change our directory to wherever this source code is. So by using the cd command, I'm going to desktop. And then from desktop, I'm going to do Java C for Java compile, and then the name of the source code I want to compile. So hello world.java. Now it should compile it, and now I have a class file. The class file is the compiled finished program. Now I had no errors in my code, so it compiled perfectly fine. But if the compiler had an error in the code and the code was not correct or had a syntax, like a grammar problem, if you want to call syntax grammar, if there was an error at all in here, it would throw it. Say I go ahead and take away my bracket here, or my colon here that tells me it's that tells the computer it's the end of the line of code, and I save it, and I try to compile this again. It says hello world.java. There's an error on line 4. It expected a semicolon to denote that this is the end of the code right here. Essentially, Eclipse will help you fix those errors. Eclipse will catch that kind of stuff. Eclipse will help you keep organized. So, could you imagine writing a whole program in Notepad and having to go through and fix every little error? Your fingers are flying at, a million words a minute, and you can't just go hunting for semicolons. So that's what Eclipse is all about. But the next step here is to compile, to run this program. Actually, it's already compiled. This .class file right here is the finished program. As you can see, if I open this with Notepad++, you see my code for this Java file. But if you open this in Notepad++, you see that it is an actual compiled program. It's all ready to go. Now, the way you run this program, this .class file, is you type Java and you ensure that you're in the same directory as the program and the name of the program. You don't need to include .class, just the name of the program. So hello world. And there it goes. Now it's printing out hello world as fast as it can and forever until I tell it to stop by clicking the X button right here. So this will always print out hello world. And that was your first program. Essentially, I'm going to get into lessons on what all of this means and essentially unconfuse you now that I've confused you and got you to write your first program and compile it. So in the next one, I think we'll begin by laying out the structure of the programs and everything. Really get into how the code works together. For an example, if you look at well, that's a bad example. That's an interface. Hold on. If you look at something like my animated text code, I'm going to explain how the structure of all this works and how declaring things works, and we'll do some really fun, cool projects. We'll do some calculators, we'll do all kinds of stuff, and then we'll get into GUIs, and this is going to be an amazing series. Now that you've written your first program and you've compiled it the old-fashioned way, you're ready to use Eclipse to really get into it, and that'll be in the next episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed.